In the quiet dawn of America's industrial age, a new kind of empire was forming. Not one of territory, but of oil, steel, and ambition. At its heart stood one man, John D. Rockefeller. He did not conquer with armies. He conquered with ledgers, with strategy, with precision. In the mid-1800s, oil was little more than a curiosity, a foul-smelling liquid pulled from the ground to light lamps and treat wounds. But Rockefeller saw something others did not. He saw the future. From a small refinery in Cleveland, he built an empire called Standard Oil, a company that would soon touch every drop of fuel burned in America. Yet behind every gallon refined lay an unspoken truth. The more the world fought, the more Rockefeller's empire grew. When the American Civil War tore the nation in two, armies marched, railways expanded, and demand for oil exploded. Every cannon fired, every engine turned, increased the wealth of Rockefeller's refineries. He did not create war, but he understood it. Conflict meant chaos, and chaos meant opportunity. I always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity, Rockefeller once said. As the smoke of the Civil War cleared, Rockefeller's fortune multiplied. He bought out competitors, controlled the railroads, and squeezed the industry until only one name remained: Standard Oil. By the 1880s, his company refined over 90% of America's oil. His reach stretched from Pennsylvania to New York, from the coasts to the fields. But Rockefeller's ambitions were not contained by borders. He looked overseas, to Europe, to Asia, to the growing machines of empire. When other men saw nations arming for conflict, he saw markets. Oil would move the ships, fuel the trains, and soon power the engines of war. The way to make money is to buy when blood is running in the streets, his associates said. Through the early 20th century, wars and revolutions reshaped the globe. But each upheaval drove one constant: the need for oil. Standard Oil, broken by law yet alive through subsidiaries, moved like a shadow through the world economy. Each piece independent, each one still bound by legacy and profit. In the First World War, the engines of industry devoured fuel faster than any war before. Oil was no longer just energy. It was strategy. Nations fought for it, men died for it, and Rockefeller's empire supplied it. From behind the scenes, the old networks endured. Corporations reborn from Standard Oil's ashes, Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, fed the machines of war. While soldiers fought on the front, contracts were signed in boardrooms. Deals that ensured American oil flowed, and the wealth flowed with it. The secret of success is to do the common thing uncommonly well, Rockefeller said. As the Great Depression gripped the world, many fortunes fell. But oil did not, and neither did the family who ruled it. In the 1930s, Rockefeller's heirs quietly built connections with banks, with industrialists, with governments. They sponsored expeditions to secure new reserves, helped finance pipelines that spanned continents, and backed the rise of new energy frontiers. While the public saw philanthropy, universities, charities, hospitals, behind those glass foundations lay control of information, of influence, of global reach. By the time the world marched toward another war, the Rockefeller network was woven into the fabric of American power. Oil had become the bloodstream of the modern world, and the Rockefellers, its beating heart. They did not need to declare war. War came to them, and with it, another fortune. As the 1940s dawned, factories roared again. Engines thundered. Tankers sailed across oceans laden with crude. Every gallon burned was profit. Every explosion abroad echoed in gold at home. But this time the stakes were higher. The weapons were larger, and the business was global. The empire Rockefeller built from barrels and ledgers was about to become the foundation of a new world order, one where economics and conflict would never again be separate. And in the smoke of the coming war, a single truth would emerge. The greatest fortunes are not made on the battlefield. They are made behind it. When the Second World War erupted, the Rockefellers were already woven deep into the fabric of American power. They did not need to chase contracts. The contracts came to them. Their refineries supplied the Allies. Their tankers crossed oceans under military escort. And every drop of aviation fuel burned above Europe came, in part, from the empire Rockefeller built. Oil is as necessary as blood in the body of modern war, the U.S. War Department declared in 1942. In the haze of battle, a new kind of wealth was forming. Contracts measured not in thousands, but in billions. Factories expanded, pipelines stretched across continents, and the same corporate structures that once served Standard Oil now served the war machine. Each shell fired, each engine turned, each convoy launched, carried within it a share of private profit. The Rockefellers were not alone. They worked alongside Morgans, DuPonts, and Mellons, a quiet fraternity of financiers who understood that war was simply another kind of market. When peace finally came in 1945, many believed the empire of war would collapse. But it did not. It evolved. The same men who built refineries for bombers now built infrastructure for peacetime. Highways, suburbs, factories. The petroleum that once fueled tanks now powered automobiles, tractors, and the dream of middle-class America. Through corporations like Standard Oil of New Jersey and Standard Oil of California, the Rockefellers controlled the arteries of progress. Their wealth no longer relied on cannon fire. It thrived on consumption. To build lasting peace, we must build lasting prosperity, said Nelson Rockefeller. As the world divided into East and West, a new form of conflict emerged. Ideological, technological, and economic. And once again the same empire profited. The government's hunger for global presence meant new pipelines, new air bases, new energy deals. Rockefeller oil reached Europe through the Marshall Plan. It reached Asia through the reconstruction of Japan. And it reached the Middle East through quiet negotiations that reshaped the map of energy forever. Wherever the Cold War expanded, so did the reach of American oil. By the 1950s, the Rockefeller influence was no longer measured only in barrels. It was measured in banks, in policy, and in power. Chase Manhattan Bank, the family's financial arm, became a cornerstone of the post-war global order. It financed trade, reconstruction, and diplomacy itself. At the same time, the Rockefeller Foundation became a global instrument of soft power, funding education, medicine, and research. But beneath every act of charity lay a deeper design: to shape the world's ideas, its leaders, its markets. Philanthropy became the gentler face of influence. Control oil and you control nations. Control food and you control people, whispered advisors. In 1961, President Eisenhower warned of a growing military-industrial complex, a system where government, industry, and finance interlocked so tightly that one could no longer exist without the other. At its core were the families and corporations forged in the furnaces of the early oil age. The Rockefellers had helped build that system, not with malice but with mastery. Their companies supplied the fuel, their banks moved the money, their influence set the policy. War had become not a crisis but a constant, a cycle of innovation, dependence, and renewal, an economy of conflict. By the 1970s, the Rockefeller dynasty had transcended the limits of a single nation. Their interests stretched from New York to Riyadh, from Wall Street to Jakarta. They were no longer merely oil barons, they were architects of globalization. Energy conferences replaced battlefields, negotiations replaced invasions, but the power dynamic remained the same. Every war, every embargo, every crisis shifted the price of oil, and with it, the balance of wealth. Today, the Rockefellers are remembered as philanthropists, bankers, and patrons of art. But their fortune, the vast engine that powered their rise, was built in the crucible of war. From the fields of Pennsylvania to the deserts of Arabia, their influence defined the age of energy. And in every generation since, the pattern has remained. Conflict creates demand, and demand creates empires. Wealth is not evil, Rockefeller once said. It is the use of wealth that may bless or curse mankind. The story of John D. Rockefeller is not only about one man. It is about a system that learned to turn chaos into opportunity and war into wealth. From the smoke of refineries to the glow of skyscrapers, his empire stands as both monument and warning. A reminder that progress and power have always marched side by side. When we see the lights of a city burning bright, we might ask, whose oil feeds the flame? Whose profit fuels the peace? Because the engines that once powered the battlefield still hum quietly beneath the world today. And their echo, the hum of industry, the whisper of wealth, the rhythm of war, still carries the name Rockefeller.